Seches Bava Metzia Daf Yud Gimel. The Gemara is analyzing our last Mishnah, which discussed what happens when you find the star on the floor, which says that the Malva lent money to the Leiva. You return it to the Malva. You return it to the Leiva. What do you do with it exactly? And the Gemara's discussion teaches us a lot of halachas about a star and about the shibud that is created by the star. So there is a lien, a achrayus, as the Gemara refers to, which says that the land of the lender is a security to pay back the loan. Even if the leiva sells the land to a buyer, to a lekeach, it's still secure, and the lien still sticks on the land, and the malva can come collect the land and take it away from the lekeach. Now, the issue here is, when does that shibud begin, and what do we do with this star, and how does this security work? So the Gemara's sugya will address some of these halachos with Erech Agav. Now, there's a few things to keep in mind when we're discussing what to do with a star that you find. There's three people's rights to protect here. There's the rights of the malva, who claims that he's owed money and he wants to get the star back so he can collect with it. There's the rights of the leiva, who claims that he doesn't owe any money, and if you give the star back, then he will have to pay because the malva will collect with it. And then there's the rights of the lekeach, the person who bought the land that has the lien on it. If the malva collects from the leiva and the leiva doesn't have what to pay, he'll take that land away from the lekeach because the lien remains on it, and he may or may not get his money back. Now, obviously we will not lechatchila protect the rights of the malva, of all things being equal, because the malva is the moitzi, and therefore if we don't have any reason to, we wouldn't say that he could take money away from anybody. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is, when does the lien begin, the shibud? So the lien usually begins at the time that the leiva is mechayiv himself. When the leiva creates the lien, when he says that my land is now meshubat to you, that's usually at the time of the loan. And the time that the loan is made, the money is owed, and that's when the lien begins. The leiva could make it any time he wants. He can make it earlier. Now, it's very important that the shtar record when the lien begins, because any property which was sold before the lien begins has no lien on it, and therefore that lekeach legally should not have his property taken away. However, if we don't have proof that it was sold earlier, or if we have proof that it was sold later, which is wrong, then that lekeach will incorrectly lose his land. Another sugya to ask here is, do you have to have this lien, the security, recorded in the shtar? What happens if the shtar has no security? Do you say that it's there anyway? Do you say that it's not there? Or do you say that the entire loan is void? So let's see what the Gemara wants to do with this. So the Gemara is discussing, who do you return the shtar to? The Gemara has said, since it was dropped on the floor, you would have to be concerned that the date is wrong, and therefore you shouldn't return it to anybody, because if the date is wrong, then you're going to end up not protecting the rights of the lekeach. He may have land which is not included in the lien, but since the date is wrong, it appears that it is. Now, the Gemara says, based on this, you should not ever write a shtar for somebody if the malva is not there. You have to see the loan happen in order to create the shtar. Otherwise, you're creating a shtar, you're creating a lien when a loan never happened. Now, the Gemara says the exception to that, of course, is if the leiva is being mishabed himself. He's creating the lien. He's allowed to be mishabed. He's allowed to put a security, put a lien on his property if he wants to, even if the loan didn't actually happen yet. But that is what's called a shtar hakna, and that is, at least at this point, that is recorded in the shtar that the leiva is mishabed himself, even if the loan didn't happen. That you could do even if the malva is not there, because the lien properly exists. But if he's not being mishabed himself yet, the shibud only starts when the loan happens, you're going to write down a lien that exists. When it doesn't really exist, then it's going to put a lien on the property of the purchaser who buys it later, which isn't really there. Now, the Gemara asks, why then in a Mishnah do we say that you can't return the shtar because it may have the wrong date? I don't understand. If the leiva was there and the malva was there, and you saw the actual loan happen, the date couldn't be wrong. The only way the date could be wrong is if the malva wasn't there. Well, if the malva wasn't there, the only way you could have written a shtar like that is if the leiva was mishabed himself. It's just, as if it's a shtar hakna, and it says on the shtar that it's a shtar hakna. The leiva created the shibud, even though the malva is not there. If that's true, it doesn't matter if the date's right or wrong. The date of the lien is what's correct, and that's what it says here. So the Gemara gives a few answers to this. The Gemara first says, Ravasi says, generally we would assume that you're not going to write a shtar, you're not going to create a lien unless either the leiva is there, unless either the leiva and the malva are there, and you see the loan, or he's Meshabed himself at that time. However, since this fell, we're afraid that that's not what happened this time. This time it was not a Shtar Hakna, and the Sefer wrote the Shtar even though the Lev and the Malva weren't there, and he didn't actually see it happen. So that's Rav Asi's explanation, straightforward. Abaye says different shot. Abaye says there's no such thing as a Shtar Hakna. Every shtar is automatically a Shtar Hakna. From the moment that the shtar is written, there's an automatic shibud. Even if it doesn't say that there's Hakna, even if the loan didn't happen. Now, the Gemara is going to ask, of course, later that there's no concern of the date being wrong. But the Gemara doesn't ask that for now. He just says, as long as the shtar is signed by witnesses, the shibud exists, even if there's no written down Hakna. And the reason he says that is because he says, how is it possible that we have a case of a shtar which was written without Hakna, without the Malva, without the Leva? Must be that you don't need to write Hakna, it's automatic. So the Gemara first asks a different kasha on that, other than the obvious one. The Gemara asks, we have a Mishnah that says if somebody finds a get of a woman, which is Mechayev the husband to pay ksuba, or he finds a shtar shichra, a get which frees an evid, or he finds a writ of a matana, a gift or a shaver, or he finds a receipt. All these things he should not give to the person whose name is on it as if it was given to him, the receiver of the get, the receiver of the shtar shichar, the receiver of the matana, and the receiver of the receipt, because maybe it was written but it was never actually given. We can't assume that something was actually given just because it was written, therefore don't give it to the person who is recorded in the shtar as having received it. Now, says the Gemara, according to what you're saying, that the shibud is automatic, so in the case of the matana, what's the problem? Give it to the person who receives the matana. The moment the shtar is written, it's already mishabed. It already creates the transaction. It doesn't matter who is given to him or not. That's what you said. So the Gemara answers, no, that's not a kasha. When do you create the transaction? From the time of the writing, when you actually follow through and give the shtar, give the gift, create the loan. That's when the shibud begins, from the time of the signatures, even if the loan happened later. However, if it never followed through, so then nothing happens. You have to actually give the gift for it to be meaningful. Now, let's go back to our Mishnah in light of these two answers. Rav Asi, who said that if it's a shtar hakna, if it's written in the shtar, that is where the shibud is created. We'll say our Mishnah is talking about where it's not a shtar hakna, and there is no shibud automatically. However, you have to assume that maybe it happened that the loan wasn't seen and he wrote the shtar anyway. According to Abaye, that the shibud is created automatically. So what's the problem? There is no possible concern here. So the Gemara says there's a different concern that Abaye is worried about, and that's that the money isn't really owed. We're talking about where the Leva admits that he owes the money. The Malva brings the person finds a shtar. The Malva and the Leva both agree that the money is owed. And the Leva says, give it back to the Malva, I owe the money. However, what's really happening is that it's false. The loan was paid off already, and the money is not owed. But what the intent is as follows. The two of them, the Malva and the Leva, got together, and they played a trick. The Leva says, listen, I have no money anyway. Come try to collect with this shtar. You'll take it away from my purchaser, and we'll split it. I'll play along. I'll say as if I owe it. I don't have anything to pay you, so you'll take it away from the guy who bought it from me, and he'll take the loss. Therefore, in order to protect the rights of the purchaser, we don't allow a shtar like this to be collected. Now, the Gemara asks, what about according to Shmuel? What does Shmuel have to do with this? Shmuel is the shita that you never have to be concerned that a shtar is paid off. If you find the shtar, it's not going to be paid off because a paid shtar is torn up right away. Now, Shmuel, therefore, cannot hold of this kanunya, cannot hold of this trick, because the trick only works if the loan existed and was paid. So, therefore, how will Shmuel explain Pshat of the Mishnah? So if he held like Rav Asi, so it's fine. He would just say that the Mishnah is referring to what there's no hakna, and therefore we're afraid the date is wrong. But if he holds like Abaye, then there's no issue if the date is wrong, because the lien begins from whatever it says on the date anyway. So the Gemara answers Shmuel has a whole different Pshat. Shmuel is chayshish here that the shtar is forged. What the Leva said here is he didn't say, I paid it. The Leva said it's forged. It never was such a loan. The entire thing never existed. And therefore, ordinarily, we would just say, investigate the witnesses that are signed on it and see if it could be Mekayim. But here, since it fell, it's a bit of a reisa. It makes things look funny here, and we're going to assume that he's correct and that it was forged. We're going to go with that. So, says the Gemara, if we believe that it was forged, then how come when there's no lien on it, we are willing to return it to the Malva? That's the halacha that the Mishnah says. If there's no lien, you could return it to the Malva, at least according to Rabbi Meir. So Gemara says, no. If there's no lien, the entire loan is invalid. Shmuel holds you have to have a lien. If there's no lien, the shtar is possible. You can never collect with it. So therefore, it doesn't matter. Return it to the malva, and it's not collectible anyway. Versus if not collectible, why are you returning to the malva? What's the point in giving him something that he can't use? So where it says, no, you're right. When there is no point in him having it. The shtar is valueless as a shtar. It's only useful as a piece of paper. You give him a piece of paper, what is he going to do with it? He'll use it to stuff his bottle. I don't know. So the Gemara says, if he's using to stuff his bottle of just a piece of paper, why give it to him? Give it to the leva. Versus, no. The leva's whole claim is that the whole thing never happened. The whole thing was forged. It's a fake. So for sure it can't be his. So the only way it could be anything is if you give it to the malva. The Gemara now says, based on this, we can better understand Machlekes and our Mishnah. The Mishnah had said that when you find the shtar on the floor, so if the shtar has achrayis in it, if it has a lien, then you can't give it to the malva because he'll collect with it. Everybody agrees to that. If, however, it's a shtar she'ein bo achrayis, that is, it has no lien on it, now you have a machlekes between Rabbi Meir and the Chacham. The Chacham say you still can't return it because somebody's going to collect with it. There'll be a problem. And Rabbi Meir says no, you could return it. So what is pshat in that? What is pshat in Rabbi Meir, and what is therefore the argument that the Rabbanan have with him? So the Gemara says there's two explanations here: Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Elazar says as follows: the machlekes is in a case where the leva is not moide that he owes the money. If he would be moide, there's no problem. You give it back to shtar. We're not afraid of paroi and kanunya. We're not afraid that it was paid and they're playing a trick to get money away from the lekuches. That's not a concern. The concern is in a case where he's not moida, and the problem is you may take it away from him, shaloi kedin. Now the Rabbanon say that the shtar is a valid shtar to collect from bnei chayrin. It doesn't have a chayis on it. It doesn't have a lien, but you could still collect from property that he owns. Now, therefore, you can't give it back to the malva because he'll take it because he will use it to take away property that the leva still owns. Rabbi Meir says no. A new concept: a shtar that does not have a chayis on it is puzzle completely. You can't have a shtar without a chayis. It wrecks the shtar. It has the status of only a milva al peh, and a milva al peh is meaningless. Now, a milva al peh is useful if the leva is moida. However, if the leva is not moida, then how do you know that it ever actually happened? There's no witnesses. Although the witnesses signed on the shtar, but the shtar doesn't have a chayis on it, so the shtar is not worth anything. So you have no witnesses establishing that this loan ever happened, and therefore you can't believe that it happened. You have to protect the rights of the leva who says that it never happened or that it was paid, and therefore you cannot return it to the malva. That's Rabbi Elazar's pshat and his machlekes. Now Rabbi Yochanan says no, that's not the pshat at all. We're not worried about the rights of the leva. We're actually talking about a case where the leva is moida. If the leva would not be moida, everybody would agree you can't return it because it was paid, like he said. We're talking about a case where the leva was moida. In the case of the leva was moida that he owes the money, what's the issue? Well, the issue is, are we afraid that there's a kanunya going on? So the Rabbanon say you can't return the shtar because it's a kosher shtar to connect from bnei chayrin. Not only from bnei chayrin, it's also a kosher shtar to collect from mishubadim. And therefore we're going to use it, we're afraid that the malva and the leva are going to use it to collect from the lekuchais. It doesn't say a chayis on it. So the Rabbanan hold of Rashita says Rabbi Yochanan called a chayis tas sefer. There's a lien automatically, even if it doesn't say it. If it's written in there, that's a mistake. You don't have to write it. And if it's not written, it's a mistake that it was left out. There's always, every shtar has an automatic security involved. Therefore, they could still use it to collect from the lekuchais, and we have to protect those lekuchais. We can't allow them to collect with it. Now, Rabbi Meir says you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about lekuchais since it doesn't have a chayis in it. There is no lien. They can't take it away from lekuchais. What about the leva? The leva is maida, so that's not an issue. Now, says the Gemara, there's a brisa where Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim actually spell out the machlekes specifically in detail, and it says explicitly like Rabbi Yochanan. Therefore, it's a kasha on Rabbi Elazar, and on Shmuel, who was before, it's actually two kashas. So let's see the brisa and then what the kashas are. So the brisa says as follows: if somebody finds a shtar in the street, so if the shtar has a chayis that has a lien on it, so everybody agrees you should not return it, even if the leva is moida, that it's not paid off, that the loan was made and it's not paid, and he owes the money, you should still not return it. And the reason is because since it has a chayis, they could use it to collect from lekuchais, and those lekuchais can be being ripped off through a kanunya. Now, this is already shver on Rabbi Elazar, because Rabbi Elazar holds that when the leva is made, that you can return it because you're not cheshish for kanuni. Kanuni is not an issue. So here clearly you see not like Rabbi Elazar in that nekuda. Now, the Brisa continues, and it says, if the star has no achrayas on it, then, according to the Rabbanon, you still cannot return it, because achrayas is a toisa cipher, it's a mistake, there's automatic achrayas, just like Rabbi Yechanan said, and therefore you still can't return it. Doesn't make a difference if he's moida, if he's not moida, the achrayas is there. Now, according to Rabbi Meir, it depends. If he's not moida, it means the Levi says, I paid it, so then you can't return it, because maybe he really did pay, like he says. If the Levi is the moida that he didn't pay, so now you can return it. It's not a problem. But since there's no achrayas on it, they can't collect from those lekuchas, so the lekuchas are safe. As far as the Levi, he's moida, so there's no problem. Otherwise, we would be choshesh for Peroin. When he's not moida, we're choshesh that it was paid. That's another place that doesn't fit with what Rabbi Elazar said. Like Rabbi Yechanan learned, that Rabbi Meir holds that if there's no achrayas, the star is kosher, at least to connect from Bnei Chayrin. And Rabbi Elazar learned that the star is puzzle altogether if there's no achrayas. It's a psul in the star, and you can't collect anything with it. So these are the kashas on Rabbi Elazar. So Gemara asks right away, you told me there's one kasha on Rabbi Elazar, this is two kashas on Rabbi Elazar. So Gemara says it's really one shita. Rabbi Elazar learns that the Mechagis are Meir, and the Chachamim is in a case where he's not the Moida. That's why he has to work out the shitas this way. But that's just really coming from one place that he learns that way. So this is called one kasha. Now Shmuel, you have two kashas. First of all, you have all these kashas on Shmuel. You have this entire kasha on Shmuel as well, because Shmuel also learns that our Mishnah, where we had a Mechekes or Meir and the Chachamim, is where the Lev is not Moida. But in Shmuel, you have a second kasha. Kasha on Shmuel said you never have to worry that the star is paid off, because if it would be paid off, it would be torn up. Shmuel said if you find the star in the street, as long as you don't have to worry that the date is wrong, that would be because it's a star hakno. It was Mechayev himself. From the time that it says on the date, he put a lien on his property, even if the loan wasn't made yet. So then you could return it. And we're not afraid that it was paid off and you're going to have the malva, you're going to empower the malva to collect from the leva a second time. Because there's no way that it was paid off. The star would have been ripped up. Here, though, you see that even though they're both moida, we still don't let him return because we're afraid of a kanunya. So if we're afraid of a kanunya, we're afraid that it was paid off, even if they're both moida that it's not paid. Certainly, if the leiv is claiming that it's not paid, we would at least be chayshish that he's telling the truth and that it's really not paid. So that's another kasha on Shmuel. The Gemara does not answer.